Have you ever wondered if your house is in violation of city codes? Well, we followed a code inspector around to show you what to look for.
Hello, my name is Paul Eschenbacher. I'm with the City of Athens Code Enforcement Office. We have several different jobs that we do, but the main one is doing inspections on all rental properties inside the City of Athens. Apartments, rental houses, sororities, fraternities, and the like. Our schedule is, because of the size of our staff, we do regular inspections once every 2 years, or if we get a specific complaint about violations at a place, either from the tenants or the landlord or neighbors or such. Our inspection process is we look at several different things, which I'll show you once we go inside. If I do find any violations, we write it up in a report that's sent off to the owner or property manager. And unless it's something dangerous, life-threatening, or of immediate importance, they have 30 days to make the repairs. I come back after 30 days, do a re-inspection. I hope most of the time the stuff is fixed, but in those instances when it's not, we send what's called an order to comply, which basically lists everything that hasn't been fixed yet, and it's sent in with conjunction with the city prosecutor's office. And in that instance, on that second notice, they have 15 days. Again, after 15 days, I'll come back. If they still haven't fixed it, then we have a right to file charges against them. It's a minor misdemeanor, but we do have the capability of requesting that charges be filed every day that the violation exists. So a minor misdemeanor is a $100 fine, but if we can make it $100 a day, that makes a much stiffer fine, obviously. If it's okay, I'll just go ahead and on in. Yeah, like I said, it's just a basic inspection to see the condition of the place based on the Athens Housing Code. Most of it's pretty practical stuff. We can start on the outside, making sure that the storm door here is okay, make sure the screen's not torn, that it works okay. Storm doors are not automatically required in rental properties. It just depends on the kind of ventilation situation you have. For instance, if a house has central air conditioning, it's not necessarily required to have storm doors because you won't necessarily need the screens. Our office has folders on every single rental in town that lists the landlord, how to get a hold of them. It lists all past reports of violations and stuff. And I'll usually check with the rental permit to make sure how many people are allowed in a place. That's another part of the city code is zoning. Sometimes it's restricted how many people you can have in an apartment. I can't give you any quick rules on it other than you should probably contact us anytime you're considering a place. As I said, we have reports on all the rentals so you can get a good idea how the place was taken care of and how many violations and so forth. Here in the living room, again, check for basic things, check the ceilings and walls and floors to make sure they're in good shape. As far as carpeting goes, if it's too dilapidated and stuff, we can write it up, but if it's just plain dirty, we write that up as well, but it is not considered an item that needs immediate attention, just as long as make sure they get cleaned up. Again, that's something we generally look for in any rental property is sanitation. Now, I'm not going through here with white cotton gloves, seeing if you have dust on your shelves or anything like that. And I really don't mind a sink full of dirty dishes or clothes on the floor. But if it looks like it's too bad, like the dishes have been there for months or the clothes have cobwebs on them, then I start to get a little concerned. One of the things I check for in a living room, which is considered a habitable room, is to make sure that they have more than one way out. We have the door here, and we have two windows here that are the right size and the right height that they can be considered second ways out of the apartment. There are rules that the windows can't be too high or too small, and also that they have to be openable, obviously, in order to get out easily. They have an air conditioner unit here, which is fine. I usually check to make sure how tight the seal is, and make sure that it's installed okay, that there's no danger of it falling in or falling out to hurt anybody. We check outlets in the room. There's a basic requirement for number of outlets in any one room. 3 for a living room, which this has, one here and one there. And there's one over here. Now, if you look at this outlet here, what they have is called a multi-plug, where they try to plug more things in there than what's recommended or allowed. Now, the only kind of multi-plugs that we approve of are those long strip plugs that have circuit breakers on them. That way, even if you do plug too much stuff in, if it overloads, it shuts off at that. The way these things are built is the short circuit could happen in the wiring in the wall or at the outlet itself, which would cause more fire possibilities. So strip plugs, I mean, not only required, it's a good idea. They have a room heater here rather than a furnace system. So I'll check basic things for that. I'll check the vent shaft to make sure there aren't any cracks or openings and that it's in decent shape and that's well connected. For these types of gas heaters, there needs to be an oxygen cutoff valve, which will automatically shut it off if there's a problem with the gas supply or if it's overloading. This one has one, so it's okay, it's approved. We'll also check sometimes. We have older models of gas heaters in town that aren't supposed to be in direct contact with the floor, so they need some kind of basic fire pad or heat pad underneath it. This is a new, not exactly a brand new model, but it's new enough that there's not a problem underneath that. Also, there's rules in apartments and houses about smoke detectors. The rule is you have to have a smoke detector in every bedroom. It doesn't matter if it's an electric one or if it's battery powered one. Recently we had to change our smoke detector ordinance to have battery smoke detectors. If you get that, they have to have the kind that the batteries are built into the smoke detectors rather than the kind, the 6-volt, you can just put in there. The reason for that is the most common violation that we come across in the code office are smoke detectors being disabled, people taking the battery out or unplugging them. This way, with the new smoke detectors where the battery is built in, it is much harder to disable them, and it's very obvious that they have been tampered with. So what some landlords do in this case, because it is a viable safety item, I mean, I personally know of examples where smoke detectors have saved students and other renters' lives because they got home at 2 in the morning, had the munchies or something after being uptown, they put something on the stove and then they kind of fall asleep or pass out or whatever. Smoke detectors awaken them when the smoke was in the room. So I know I sound like some kind of safety instructor here or something, but it is very important that you keep your smoke detectors working. But anyway, smoke detectors in every bedroom, and then a smoke detector in a public area on every floor of the rental. In other words, since this is the public room, this only one floor, then you just need one here. So I just test it just to make sure it sounds. For smoke detectors that I can't reach, we have cans of smoke that we can spray up at them if necessary. That way, and it's a more accurate test to make sure that they work okay. Okay, I'm all done in here in the living room. We can come into the kitchen here, and in the kitchen here, this happens to have the circuit breaker box here, so I check that. It's just basically to make sure that it has its full protective coating here, cover, so there aren't any exposed slots where people could accidentally stick their fingers in if they're fiddling with this, and make sure that it's the proper size circuit breakers for this. Also in the kitchen here, again, you check the ceilings, floors, and walls. There's a slightly different rule for floors in kitchens and in bathrooms, which is not only do the floors have to be in good shape, but they have to be moisture impervious. In other words, they have to be able to repel water. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't have carpeting in a kitchen, although we do recommend against that because it gets dirty very quickly. But as long as the main surface underneath that is water impervious, moisture impervious, that's okay. Another thing we check here, we've got a gas stove. So I make sure that the burners actually light. Very often these get dirty and clogged, and obviously you don't want free gas coming into the room. And check the oven too. You can see there that there is a flame that you can see from here. And I also check the oven to see if there's a lot of spills in it. I mean, if it's really bad, that can catch fire as well. Because this is a gas stove, I also check back here, and I can see from here to check the gas line to make sure it's a approved connection and approved material for the pipe, and it is. Coming across this way, you'll notice in this particular instance they have the refrigerator here. If you can see it, there's a door here. This is the second door out of this apartment. Now, this is not automatically a violation. because you do need two ways out of most rooms, and there are two ways. There's this way, you can go through the bedroom, and there's the window here. We don't normally recommend that people do this. I mean, the more ways you can have out of your house or apartment in case of an emergency, the better it is. But again, this is not a particular violation. Other things I'll check in the kitchen is, even though it sounds pretty simple, I'll check the water supply. It's almost never a violation, but I have been in places where for some reason they didn't bother to tell anybody they didn't have water. I also check to make sure they have enough hot water and it's at adequate pressure. That's true even if you're in the third floor in the attic of a house and there's a bathroom up there. You should have adequate water supply and adequate hot water supply. I'll also check underneath to see if there's a problem with the drain pipe leaking or to see if there's any evidence of leakage underneath. This looks fine down here. The water's gotten hot and you got an adequate cold water supply. Now also in the kitchen, it's a requirement that they have at least 2 ground fault circuit interrupter electric outlets. What that means for ground fault or GFCIs are these kinds of outlets here with the 2 buttons on them. Now this is a tester that I use. I plug into it, and what it does is basically causes a short circuit, which is these outlets are supposed to handle. I press the button and if you could see it, the red button popped out, which means that now there's no supply coming through here because of the short circuit, so it's safe. And all I have to do is push this back in and it works okay. The general rule is 2 in a kitchen or any of these that are within 6 feet of a water supply. So we'll check later in the bathroom to make sure they have one there. The window here, again, I check if there's no other ventilation source immediately for the room. Make sure that the window's in good shape. This is a recently replaced window in good shape and it's operable. Let's see what else we can check in here. There's not much rules about kitchens in terms of requirement or shape. You just check to make sure, again, everything's okay. That includes cabinets. If there's something wrong with cabinet doors and stuff, we can write that up. I consider it part of the wall, so just like a hole in the wall, if cabinet doors don't work or anything like that, I can write that up. Now we'll go into the bathroom here. Now, this bathroom doesn't have any windows. That's okay as long as it has an approved mechanical ventilation system. In other words, a fan. So you check the fan, and I can check just by feel to make sure that it is actually drawing air out of the room. These are a really good idea, and the main reason why they're required if you don't have a window is because of the humidity buildup in bathrooms can cause mildew and stuff to start up. We occasionally, well, not occasionally, but every once in a while we get complaints from people who think they have black mold or something horrible creeping up in their bathroom, and it may be nothing more than just mildew buildup that just needs to be cleaned. A good bathroom cleaner will take care of that. I've checked the shower stall here just for practical things, to make sure it's in good shape, make sure it's not too dirty, and make sure there aren't any cracks or anything that can cause leakage into the walls. One of the problems with stalls is that moisture can occasionally get behind them, but if it's properly installed and properly sealed, shouldn't be a problem. Also check the faucets to make sure they aren't dripping. Then here at the lavatory, again, check for the hot water and the general water supply. While that's going, I'll go ahead and check the outlet, make sure it's working okay. Again, you plug it in and push the button and it automatically trips, so it's working all right. And again, there's adequate hot water supply and cold water. And I'll check underneath the lavatory to see if there's any leakage problems that I can find or feel. The toilet, basically, you can just see if it works okay just by flushing and see if it runs afterward. As I also said in the bathroom, the floor has to be moisture impervious. So we'll check that. If there's like cracks in linoleum or the tile or open breaks or something, we can write them up for that. Here, There's a baseboard heater in here. Those are okay. Again, just a basic check to make sure it has the protective covering on it. There aren't any burn marks or obvious spark problems here, and that seems to be okay. We'll get out of the bathroom here. Another requirement are fire extinguishers. Every apartment is supposed to have a fire extinguisher, and rooming houses where there are 6 or more are supposed to have them on every floor. Now, there's a state law that says these have to be inspected once a year by a state licensed service person. There's a couple of them around town. What they do is they check the pressure and make sure it's filled, and then they'll put a tag on it. This is from Polini Industries here in town, and it says that this was checked in March of 2008, last month, so it's okay. I'll just check it, and again, obviously I'll check the gauge to make sure it's pressurized and charged. And these are supposed to be hung up or put in a visible and accessible location, as it's called. In other words, you have to be able to find it easily and know where it's at. A lot of times, if I don't find it right away when I'm doing an inspection, I'll ask the tenants if they're there. If they can go to it right away, if it's under the sink or something, it does need to be out, but the main concern I have is that the tenants know where it is, and hopefully they won't be afraid to use it if, God forbid, there's a fire. So let me go into the bedroom here, make sure there's nobody here. And again, basic stuff, ceilings, walls, floors. Check to make sure that the ceiling light works. And there are enough electric outlets in the room. Again, this is a bedroom, so it's required to have a smoke detector, so I'll test that. Okay. Go over to the windows here. Check to make sure they're in good shape, that the panes aren't broken or that they aren't out of line or there aren't any drafts. With these windows that have been recently replaced, there's almost never a problem with that, but you have to check anyway. And there are enough outlets in the room. It has a baseboard heater here too, but again, it's in decent shape. And again, this is fortuitous. This bedroom has 2 different kinds of smoke detectors. It's got the electric one here. And if it's not working, it does have this battery backup, which is the minimum requirement for this place anyway, so it's okay. Since the smoke detector law changed a few years ago, you're going to find some places that might have 2 smoke detectors in the room, an older model and a newer one. As long as the newer model, the approved model works, it's okay. The older model doesn't necessarily have to. Again, check here for the windows and stuff. Another thing we check for, even though it's rarer and rarer anymore, is there's minimum size requirements for bedrooms. Now, this is an older housing code we have in Athens, so the minimum size for a bedroom is 70 square feet. That's 7 by 10. Now, that's not very big, but that's the minimum size for one person. For 2 people, you have to add 50 square feet. So for one person, it's 70 square feet. For 2, it's 120. For 3, it's 170, and so forth. And there's also minimum height requirements for ceilings. They have to be at least 7 feet high. Now, I'm 6'9", so I know that this is okay. But believe me, there are a few houses in Athens where I have to bend over in order to get through some places, but as long as it's not habitable rooms, it's okay. And that's pretty much it here in this. As I said, it's a smaller apartment. We do housing inspections and so forth for all sizes of rental units inside the city limits. So if you ever have any problems or anything, you can call the Code Enforcement Office at 592-3306 and talk to anybody there and just ask questions. If you're not sure that's a violation there, you can ask us and there's no problem whatsoever.
What's the average amount of time I should wait before something gets fixed?
Well, it depends on what it is. I mean, if the problem is the lights out in the hallway, that's up to you to decide. Again, for something like that, we'll give them 30 days to repair it. If it's something more serious, like you're out of hot water, there's a sewage leak or something like that, or the furnace goes out in the wintertime, obviously that you want that done more quickly. I always recommend the first thing you do is to always contact the landlord and make sure you've let them know, either in writing or some kind of record that you've let them know. Sometimes renters in town get in such a cantankerous relationship with their landlords that they don't even want to talk to them anymore. But you still have to let them know about that. Once a certain amount of time, say you've had enough of taking cold showers for 3 days, contact us. We'll make it a priority item on the notice of violation report that they have to get it done right away. If things are too bad in an apartment, we can go to the point where we can, what's called placard the place, which means we shut it down. It's not allowed to be lived in by anybody. We can do that not only if the place is incredibly unsafe, but even if it's illegal. I mean, right now I'm going through a case where a landlord has simply refused to do the repairs he's supposed to. There's none of them that are life-threatening. It's minor things here and there, but the landlord simply hasn't done them. So now I'm at a point where I've taken him to court, and if he continues not to do it, I will placard the place and revoke his rental permit, which means he won't be allowed to rent that place to anybody until everything is repaired.
What are the top 5 things I should be aware of as a renter?
Top 5 things. First, safety items, smoke detectors and stuff. Another thing is, depending on how far ahead you are looking for a place, like if it's January and you're looking for a place next fall, check the house out, see how cold it is, see how well it keeps heat. Talk to the tenants if you can to see if their heating bills or electric bills are astronomical or normal. And you can check things like drafts and stuff. Make sure, again, as I alluded to before, make sure you know how many people are allowed to live in the place. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but last year I caught somebody having 4 people in a house that was only supposed to have 3, so I had to order them to get rid of somebody. Now, this was at the end of April. It was like a year ago. So imagine going to school, you finally found a place to live, and at the end of April you're told you have to leave and find another place for the next month that you're in school. And again, you can check all this stuff through our office. You can call us, and we'll be happy to give you any information you want. Other things, just depending on what you look for. In an apartment, see if you can check it out during the evening to see how loud it is with your neighbors. A lot of people in Athens, it's location, location, location. For instance, people love to find apartments up on Court Street because it's right in the center of the action. Well, that's one of the detrimental things, too, because you're right in the middle of the action, and if you ever want quiet time, sometimes it can be difficult. It just depends on the building and the apartments and stuff. So just smart shopping is one of the best things that will help you get through it.